Today we're going to be talking about something super important, and that is going to be investment accounts. I'm a pretty new investor, and my eyes have really been open to the amount of different accounts you can use to invest money, and they all have slightly different purposes, different tax benefits, some being geared towards retirement, medical expenses, college, all that stuff. So today I want to talk about some of these accounts and kind of go over the differences, what they're used for. It's all things that you probably heard of, but maybe never knew about. So whether you're young, old, retired, or starting your investment journey, I think you're going to learn something today. So the first type of accounts that I want to talk about are going to be retirement accounts. So these are all accounts that you're going to set up with the goal of hopefully retiring eventually, whether that's 59 and a half, 65, 70, whatever age that is. These accounts are going to allow you to save and invest money for retirement. And the first one is a 401k. Now, this is a retirement savings account that's offered by most employers, and this can either be a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k. And the idea is you're going to contribute a percent of your paycheck to the account. Now, typically the company that you're setting this up through will offer a percentage match. I think commonly it's either 3, sometimes 6%. But going back to the different types, so the traditional versus a Roth. With a traditional 401k, the contributions are coming out before taxes. Therefore, the withdrawals later are taxed. So that's the main advantage there. You're taking the money pre-tax. Now, with a Roth 401k, the contributions come out after taxes. So then the withdrawals down the road are tax-free. So those are kind of the two main differences, and you're going to see that come up with a few other accounts, the traditional versus a Roth. It just depends on when the money is being taxed. Now, this account does have downsides. Because it is a retirement account, you can't withdraw the money until you're 59 and a half. Or, if you do, you'll have to pay a penalty, either taxes or fees, stuff like that. Now, another downside is going to be that while it's tax-free now, you are taxed later on the withdrawals and gains. And this is for the traditional 401k, which I believe is more common. Now, upsides to this is that you get a company match most times. So this means you should probably at least be contributing to the match, because that means you're getting 100% gains, right? If you were to contribute $1,000 and your company puts in $1,000, then you already made 100% on your contribution. And again, with the traditional 401k, that money is coming out pre-taxed. Therefore, your taxable income can also be labeled as lower. Another thing to note is that this money is automatically invested usually into mutual funds, target date funds, and index funds. Moving on now to another type of retirement account, we have the 403b. Now, this is, again, a retirement savings account, usually offered by an employer, and it pretty much follows the exact same rules as a 401k. Now, there are a few key differences, and we'll get into that, but this can also be either a traditional 403b or a Roth 403b. So again, traditional, the money's going to be coming out pre-tax, paying taxes on the money later when you go to withdraw it, and then a Roth 403b would be the money is getting put in after taxes, and then later when you withdraw, it's not taxed or it has tax advantages. Now, the main differences between the two, the 401k and the 403b, is going to be who offers it. So a 403b is going to be offered to nonprofit organizations, public schools, hospitals, and churches. There might be others, but those are kind of the main ones. And then 401k is going to be offered to private sector companies. Now, the second key difference is what it's invested into. So nowadays, a majority of it is the same as a 401k, the mutual funds, target date funds, index funds, but some plans will still be involved with annuities. And annuities are basically a contract with an insurance company. So you're going to be putting money in and giving them money, and then in return, the insurer is going to promise to pay you later. And I'm just going to leave it at that. That's a pretty basic understanding from what I know. But you can look into it further. There's different types of annuities, but I'm just going to leave it at that. And so this is going to bring us to our third type of retirement account, and that's going to be an IRA, or an individual retirement account. Now, this is going to allow you to save money for retirement with other sorts of tax advantages. This account is also going to allow you to choose your own investments. So basically, when you put money in, it's not going to be automatically invested to anything. You have to go in and elect what you're going to buy with that money. And again, it follows similar rules where there's two types. You have a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So again, as we talked about, traditional, The contributions now are going to be tax deductible, but you will pay taxes on the gains later. And for the Roth, that means the contributions are from your taxed income, so you don't pay taxes on the gains later. Now, this is going to be heavily limited on what you can contribute by the IRS. Currently, we're at $7,500 in 2026, and it was $7,000 in 2024 and 2025. Now, that limit that you can contribute each year is slightly higher if you are 50 or older. They call this like a catch-up contribution. They give you, I think it's like another $1,000, so it's like $8,500 now. And that's so that you can put more money in and try to catch up, so to speak. Now, another thing to note about this type of account is that you can withdraw it before the age of 65. And the amount you can withdraw without having a penalty is going to be the amount that you've put in. So let's say you've put $1,000 in, and after 20 years, it's grown to $3,000. Now, before retirement age, you can withdraw that $1,000 that you've put in with no penalty. And another thing to note is that you can continue to contribute to a year's total, right? So let's say 2026 is $7,500 up until April of that next year, meaning you can continue to contribute for 2026 until April of 2027. Now, there are other limitations to a Roth IRA, such as you need to be under a certain amount of income every year, but there are other ways to get around that. So just kind of to sum up the retirement accounts, the IRAs versus like a 401k or a 403b, an IRA is opened by yourself, and the 401k, 403b is opened through an employer. The IRA usually has a lower contribution limit, and the 401k/403b have higher limits. The IRAs also have a lot more investment freedom because you're choosing what you can invest in, and they have more options to invest in, while a 401k, 403b are limited with their investment options. And finally, this one's kind of obvious, the IRAs have no match, but the 401k or 403b will sometimes have that employer match, anywhere from 0 to 6%. And so that kind of concludes the different types of retirement accounts. I'm sure there's other account types, but those are kind of the main ones that you've probably either heard of or are maybe even invested in now. So now I want to move on to the health-related accounts. These are also some accounts that you've probably heard of before, and the first one's going to be your HSA, your health savings account. Now, this type of account is going to let you save money for medical expenses with huge tax benefits. You can also kind of use this account as a retirement account later in life, but that's not really its main purpose. So the people who have the opportunity to open one of these are going to be people with high deductible health plans or high deductible insurance plans. So it's kind of geared towards people with the higher deductible insurance plans to kind of offset that price. Now, the key, most important benefit of this account is that it has a triple tax advantage. And you're going to hear everybody talk about this, but what does that actually mean? That means that the money that goes in is going to be pre-tax. So you can think of that like a traditional account, and the money is going to grow tax-free and come out or be withdrawn tax-free like a Roth account. So it's really the best of both worlds there, where the money is pretty much never taxed, as long as you're using it for one of the qualified medical expenses. Now, these expenses are doctor's visits, prescriptions, dental or vision, glasses, contacts, different types of therapies, and other over-the-counter medical items. And you can use this money either now when you pay for it or even down the line, as long as you keep the receipts of what you're buying. Now, as I mentioned before, this account has a retirement angle. So that basically looks like after the age of 65, you can make non-medical withdrawals. Now, these withdrawals are going to be taxed like a traditional IRA. So the money went in tax-free, but now that it's coming out, it's got to be taxed. But your medical withdrawals are still tax-free. So really, you can't go wrong with this account. Now, the money in your HSA can also be invested. So while it's in there, it can also be growing over time. But the contribution limits is lower than a 401k or a 403b, and you can't contribute once you're on Medicare. So if you have the option, you should be using this account because it's basically the best possible account from a tax standpoint. But like I said, this is only available to people with a high deductible health plan. So On the opposite side of the spectrum, for everybody, you have what's called a flexible spending account, and this is an FSA. And so this is similar, where you set money aside pre-tax from your paycheck to use on qualified medical expenses, all of the same expenses pretty much. So the money is spent very similarly to an HSA. However, the main difference is these accounts are typically a use it or lose it type of situation, meaning the money left at the end of the plan year is forfeited or gotten rid of. You don't have it anymore. Now, sometimes they can allow you to carry a small amount over or have some sort of grace period with, at the end of the year to spend the money. But that's, again, not all plans have that. It really depends. And the contribution limits are lower than an HSA. This account also has no retirement uses because the money in the account is not invested, it doesn't grow, you don't get to keep it at the end of your plan year. This is pretty much available to everybody, so people who don't have a high deductible healthcare plan can use this instead. However, in order to truly benefit from this account, you'll need to have planned medical expenses throughout the year or throughout that planned year to make sure you use all the money in the account. Otherwise, you won't really be benefiting from this because you're going to lose whatever you didn't use. So kind of a more strategic account, not necessarily like a no-brainer, you have to open this, because if you don't have any medical expenses, you're really going to just be losing the money. So now there's another type of account that you can open, which would be for educational expenses, or like an educational savings account. And this is called a 529. And this is actually a pretty interesting account. I didn't really know what this was before researching for it, and it's a pretty cool way to save and invest your money to pay for educational expenses with a tax benefit. So the money in this account can actually be used for tuition, for any fees associated with education, books, supplies, even your room and board. You can also use this for trade school, graduate school, kindergarten through 12th tuition, even student loan repayment. So how this account works is that the money is going in after taxes, and then it grows tax-free. The withdrawals are also then tax-free when you use it for the qualified educational expenses. So this is comparable to a Roth retirement account, but for educational purposes. So who can open this account? And this is open to pretty much everybody. Parents, grandparents, relatives, even the student can open the account. Now, if the person opening the account isn't the student, the beneficiary of the account would be the student. Now, the beneficiary can even be changed to another family member if the person who you originally opened it up for doesn't decide to use it for any educational purposes. Now, the contribution limits for this account are very high. They're not actually set by the IRS, they're set by the states, so it kind of varies depending on where you live. But what happens if that person does not have educational expenses? So like I said before, the beneficiary can be changed at any point, or you can even roll a portion of the money into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. Now this is heavily limited from what I understand, but that's another way you can use the money in the account to, if the person doesn't decide to go to school. Now, the money in this account can also be withdrawn, but you'll have to pay taxes on the withdrawings. And those taxes are only on the earnings of the account. So then it kind of just becomes a normal taxable brokerage account. So this is a very interesting account if you have people in your family who plan to go to school, if you're having a kid, anything like that. This would be kind of a good option to open up. It has a lot of flexibility, different ways you can use it, and if in the end you really have no other way to use it, you can just use it like a normal investment account. And that brings us to our last account, which is the taxable brokerage account. Now this account is very open. This is the most bare bones investment account, and it's for everybody. So there's no real discernible benefits or advantages. There's no contribution limit. There's no withdrawal restriction. You pay taxes on the dividends, the interest, the capital gains. All the money going in is post-tax. But you can also invest in anything: stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds. Everything's on the table depending on who you're investing through. There's a bunch of different firms that you can open these accounts with, and that goes for all of the previous accounts that we've spoken about. But this is really just the account you use when you've exhausted all other tax benefits accounts. All right, this was kind of a long one. I really wanted to discuss and talk about the different types of accounts, explain who can use them, how you can use them, and what they're used for. So I hope you learned something, whether you've been investing for years, haven't started investing yet. Really, there's a lot of different options out there that nobody really talks about, or that you can take advantage of. So feel free to do your own research. This was a brief summary of all of them, or most of them. And yeah, like I said, hopefully you learned something, and we'll be back next week with a new video.